Hey, what's already? Welcome back to News Dose, and to end the week, I want to end on a more positive note. Obviously, it's been a rough week for the game industry and for gaming fans, so I want to give you all something a little bit more positive to look forward to as we head into the 4th of July weekend. By the way, happy 4th of July. So instead of focusing on what we don't have, we're going to talk about an exciting Xbox project that will release sometime in the future. Now, who knows? Maybe it'll also end up being multi-platform. So I'd say regardless of where you prefer to play, you should absolutely cheer this project on. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with a brand new Resident Evil game titled Resident Evil Survival Units. And this is kind of out of left field. This is a new strategy mobile game, I believe in RTS, if I'm not mistaken, and it's being developed by Aniplex and Joy City in partnership with Capcom. Now, they haven't revealed any type of gameplay just yet, but they, however, launched a teaser website. You can see here that its premiere will debut in roughly 6 days from the making of this video, being on July 10th. Now, honestly, I wouldn't put a ton of expectation into this. Mobile tends to be more miss than hit, but at the same time, you never really completely know about these type of things. So if anything else, if you're a big Resident Evil fan, it might at the very least be worth keeping an eye on. Admittedly, strategy games do fit very well onto the mobile format, so fingers crossed that maybe it'll surprise us come next week. Now here's just really a bizarre story to me that tells us everything that's wrong with the AAA game industry in one fell swoop, because apparently EA's leadership has high, and I mean super high expectations for the next mainline Battlefield title. Reportedly, they want to target an eventual 100 million users, which is absolute insanity considering the entire franchise has yet to sell 100 million units. The best-selling entry reached 30 million, which is actually very impressive, but that's still a far shot from 100 million. I mean, maybe Battlefield 6 will be free to play. That would change things a little bit. But here's the thing. To understand why EA has these lofty expectations, look no further than their crazy high budget. This almost kind of seems like a weekly topic by this point, but here we go yet again. Reportedly, as of 2023, Battlefield 6 had a $500 million budget. That is absolutely ludicrous. And by this point, I am just convinced that the current leadership in the game industry is clueless. This just isn't sustainable in the long run. It's the reason that games have to sell 5, 6, 7 million units for razor-thin profits. I remember 10 years ago when 1 million was celebrated as a huge milestone for a game, and that alone was often enough to get a sequel greenlit. Yet now here we are with studios shutting down after selling a respectable 3 to 5 million units for a single game. I mean, there's a problem with how these AAA companies use their money. Now, despite my rant, though, admittedly, I will say that Battlefield is a unique franchise that can push 5+ million units probably fairly easy, but 100 million, unless it's free to play, that's a completely different story. Now, to be fair here, though, maybe they're shooting for the moon, all while knowing that it's probably not going to actually reach that. And, you know, if that's their strategy, well, then I'll take that as them being confident in the game's quality. Now, the last Battlefield wasn't exactly too great, so who knows? Maybe this is an oddly good sign. I'm going to at least try to view it in that perspective. Now, speaking of the AAA game industry, though, and just how out of touch or frustrating they can be at times, well, we got some news for BioWare's Anthem. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like this news is shocking beyond belief, just considering how poorly this game sold, but it, however, does highlight a flaw that a lot of fans get frustrated by. So what's happening here is that Anthem's servers will be shutting down in roughly 6 months. You can see here on EA's website, they said, "We have an important update to share regarding Anthem. After careful consideration, we will be sunsetting Anthem on January 12th of 2026. This means the game will still be playable online for the next 180 plus days. As of today, you can no longer purchase in-game premium currency, but you can still use your remaining balance until the servers go offline. What makes the situation even worse, though, is that right below that statement, they also said Anthem was designed to be an online-only title, so once the servers go offline, the game will no longer be playable. So there it is. If you bought into this game at any point in time, well, it's soon going to be nothing more than a paperweight. And that's all there is to it. Welcome to the always online future, I guess, and this here is one of the reasons why some gamers are concerned with the direction that the industry is currently leading us into. I mean, we can argue about which one we prefer. Do you like digital? Do you like physical? But one thing is for certain. No matter what you think about these companies, they are not our friends. We're nothing more to them than dollar signs. And time again, they've revealed their hand that we don't actually own these games. And if it fits into their pockets, well, they don't mind taking them away from us. So you can trust them with all of your games and all of that stuff, but unlike the games that released 30 years ago, there's really not a guarantee that we'll be able to play some of our modern library 30 years down the line. It's all in the hands of these gaming companies and whether or not they think we deserve our games in the future. Now, like I said, though, we do have some good news to talk about as well. So let's just go and have fun here for a moment, because there's been a lot of rumors swirling around these past few days about another high-profile Xbox cancellation. Obviously, Xbox is going through some big changes. They shut down the initiative and they canceled a few of their games. But here's the thing. There was a rumor going around that they exited their partnership with Hideo Kojima. Of course, they're working together on a new horror game titled OD. I believe it's going to use some of his PT ideas from yesteryear, which I think that alone is incredibly exciting, given that small demo on the PlayStation 4 somehow managed to be one of the most praised horror games ever made. So to think about a more full-fledged experience with those ideas, I mean, that seems pretty exciting to me. The brilliance of Kojima on full display, let me tell you. And that's why this really is such a huge story. Can you imagine if Xbox actually canceled a Hideo Kojima partnership? I mean, they would have to be flat out crazy, because he is quite literally one of the most praised and one of the most beloved figures in gaming history. If gaming had a Mount Rushmore, you could very well argue that he deserves to be there. So if they were to cancel their partnership with him, I mean, the media would have eaten into Xbox like never before. Xbox fans would have been beyond furious. And something that people don't realize about a situation like this is that this could also have a huge impact on Xbox's relationship with Japanese companies. I mean, just considering how respected Hideo Kojima is, I mean, if they were to cancel their partnership with him, that could possibly echo across the Japanese game industry. So you better believe that they need to see OD to the end. Now, luckily, it seems like that is the case as of this moment. Despite these rumors, it's been reported that OD is still indeed in development with Xbox. So, there you go. We got some good news for a change. I feel like we kind of needed it after everything this week, but one thing I want to kind of point at here is Death Stranding 2. Hideo Kojima received a lot of criticism after the release of the first Death Stranding. You know, it's not a game for everybody, but I remember the comments very, very well. People called him overhyped, they called him washed, and this, that, and the other. Yet here comes Death Stranding 2, and it is a legitimate Game of the Year contender. It's got a 90 overall score on Metacritic with more than 100 reviews. It's the highest reviewed PSN game ever with more than 15,000 reviews, and pretty much everybody is calling it a masterpiece. So clearly, Kojima still has it in him. Yes, he has some off-of-the-wall ideas. Not always going to pan out, but Death Stranding 2 is the exact reason that everybody should be excited for OD. And for that matter, that is something that I talk about often when it comes to AAA games. It feels like a lot of AAA companies don't really take a lot of risk anymore, but Hideo Kojima, his games are always creative. So just more reason to be excited about OD. And I do believe both Xbox and PlayStation fans should root for this game, just as both type of fans should also root for Death Stranding 2. And let me explain why. We know about Xbox's multi-platform strategy, so you never know. It could end up being on PlayStation. And then as for Death Stranding 2, Sony doesn't actually own that IP. They do have some kind of exclusive deal with them, but similar to the first game, it wouldn't be shocking if it eventually releases everywhere. So everybody just try to get along here, because down the road, everybody might end up being able to play both of these games. Now, one more thing before we go, and I really wanted to keep this video as upbeat as I possibly could, but sadly, we do have one more thing to talk about. Reportedly, Microsoft canceled Forza Motorsports and have shifted Turn 10 into a support studio for Playground Games. Now, I don't know if this is 100% confirmed just yet. This news comes from a former Turn 10 employee that left back in 2016, but I mean, he likely does still have sources within the studio. So it would make sense that he has some information from them, but even still, maybe take this news with a slight grain of salt until we get a more official confirmation. If we do, of course, I'll keep you all updated. Now, I will also say that even if this does turn out to be true, that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll never get another Forza Motorsports game again, as some people are assuming. Turn 10 is still a studio, a much smaller studio now, but they do still exist, and if Xbox ever decides to go forth with a brand new Forza Motorsports game, you know, they could pull together and make it happen. Just don't expect it to happen anytime soon. That's kind of the way I'm taking this news for the time being, which is still a very sad moment. This is a staple franchise that helped build the Xbox brand, a series that's really never produced a bad game, and to hear that its future is now kind of in doubt, it's disheartening and really showcases Microsoft's pressure on the Xbox brand. Let me hear what you all think about this, though, in the comments below. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.